What's going on, y'all? Welcome to my review of episode 2 of season 1 of A Discovery of Witches. Oh, child, that's a lot. I feel like that was a lot of words at one time. I don't know why, but I feel like there was so many words at once. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, welcome to the review, child. So, I initially thought that I was going to be binge watching the show. Things did not work out that way. Life got busy, life got hectic, and I just have not had a chance to watch it the way I wanted to. But I'm back now. I'm here for your viewing and listening pleasures. I'm all yours. So y'all, let's go ahead and get into the episode and see what my girl Diana's been up to. Okay, y'all, so the episode don't even start off with Diana, which I'm actually perfectly okay with, but that's something we'll talk about a little bit later on. So the episode actually starts off with this woman, and she's sitting at a table at a restaurant. I don't know where they are because y'all know I don't know how things work. I think they're in I don't even know where the show is set. Now that I think about it, I probably need to know that. I think that's y'all. Oh my god! I just realized I don't know where the show is set. I think it's set in Italy, London. Girl, I don't know. Anyway, okay. I'm gonna find out. So anyway, they're sitting at this lady's sitting at this restaurant, and she sees this man, and he's with this girl. I'm assuming this is his girlfriend. And so she's sitting there and she's watching him, and then she gets up and she kind of moves closer to where he is. He kind of looks at her and whatever, and she's just being very flirtatious, and you can tell she's clearly got her eyes on him. So later on, him and the girl are sitting at they're sitting in front of a building or whatever, and the lady is sitting behind them, on some steps behind them. And so he looks back and he sees her. They catch eyes. You can tell that he's really into it, she's really into it. And the lady gets up and she walks off. So this man leaves his girlfriend, who again, I'm assuming this is his girlfriend. I do not know. I just know that he was with this woman, and then he got up and he left. So he goes after her, and they are in an alley, and they're making out and whatever. And so she calls him Matthew, and he corrects it, and he's like, Matthew, or whatever. I'm not making fun of anyone's accent. I'm just saying that he corrected her with the pronunciation of his name. And so it's like, okay, whatever. And then they're out they go from the alleyway to a very public space where everyone can see them. And they just start making whoopee. And I was caught off guard because I was like, wait a minute, do y'all know y'all in public where people can see you? And so as they're, engaging in coitus, she bites him and starts laughing. She's got blood all in her mouth and she's laughing. He's like, excuse me. He is so confused. And so he runs off, whatever. And then he sees his friends across a little channel. And he can't get to them because there's no bridge there to get to him. So he tries to find an alternate route. So then she comes up behind him and she rips his shirt open and she's like, Matthew. And then we cut to the opening credits. Listen, I don't know why she thinks this man is Matthew, but she thinks this man is Matthew. And she gonna devour him at every chance she gets. I was like, oh, okay. This is the opening scene, child. So that had me really into what's about to happen in this episode. Okay, so then y'all, we cut to a car and it's driving down the highway, whatever else. And they start playing the intro music, whatever. And I didn't particularly care for this because it's a small thing, but y'all know I get caught up on small things. So as the car is driving down there and it pulls into this parking lot of a mansion. I say parking lot. I guess the driveway of a mansion. Mansions don't have parking lots. And so he pulls in and they start over the scene playing Matthew's opening speech from the first episode where he's vampires and witches and whoever else used to live out in the open and then men came around, blah, 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 blah. And I just felt like that was so strange. I feel like I would not have played that there because it was too much happening. You had that, you had the music, you had the imagery of him getting out of the car. You had the actual scene playing out. And I feel like it was so... I don't know what word to use other than bulky. Like, I feel like there's a reason that they did it, and I'm sure that a normal person would not be so distracted by that, but I feel like I was very distracted by it. I did not care for that, but that's me. Anyway, so Matthew, this man comes to the, entrance of the mansion, and he welcomes Matthew and whatever else. And Matthew's like, you didn't have to be here because I can hunt on my own. And the guy's like, anyway, like I said. And so they go in, and he hands Matthew a glass of like wine or something. Matthew looks around and he says, Matthew looks around and he's like, you redecorated. And the guy was like, yeah, I feel like it needed a touch of color. And Matthew says that the inside of this mansion looks like a wedding cake. Y'all, I was so tickled. I was so tickled. Like, I literally hollered out loud. I had to pause it because I was hollering out loud. Anyway. And so the guy starts asking Matthew, like, why did you come up here? Whatever else. Matthew says it's complicated. The guy's like, isn't it always with you? And Matthew's like, this time is super complicated. And the guy's like, for whatever reason, he's like, just like us, or whatever he said. He's like, a vampire friends with a demon. And I was like, that was a way to introduce that. That was definitely an interesting segue into y'all's dynamic, but that's neither here nor is it there. And Matthew says that he came up there to get away from a witch, and the guy's like, oh, like you can see visibly he's like, oh, okay. And Matthew's like looking at him, and the guy's like, so when you say get away from her, do you mean? And Matthew's like, I'm craving her. And then he goes back to drinking his drink, and I was like, what does that mean, that you're craving her? So I'm assuming craving is like, craving, like he wants to bite her. That's what I'm assuming. Now, I could be missing some other context, but that's what I got from it. And then the other thing too, when Matthew said that he could have gone hunting by himself, when he, was telling the guy earlier, I was curious what kind of hunting he meant. Because, Matthew's a vampire. And I don't know if in this world we talking about like the most dangerous game type hunting, or if we talking about like, let me go out here and try to find a goose. Because in my mind and in my heart and in my soul, we talking about the most dangerous game. We got some people that live out there in the woods, and we just hunting them down. I don't know. I could be mistaken, but I'm gonna assume that for the sake of what this show is, that he's going to be hunting like rabbits or something like that. But I'm not gonna put it past him. I'm just gonna wait to see what we got. Next scene is everybody's favorite witch, Diana Spencer. So she's laying in the bed. I don't know why I got irrationally angry over this. I am telling you that I got irrationally upset to the point where I felt like I maybe needed to make an appointment with like some kind of mental health specialist, because she's laying in the bed and she's laying flat on her back with her hair like it puts you in mind of like Rapunzel or something, like when she's laying down. I don't even know how to, not Rapunzel, what's the girl's name from Sleeping Beauty, whatever her name was, Aurora. She's laying down, hair just all over the place, these golden locks, and I don't know what about that made me upset, but something did, because I was like, she even sleeps boring. Y'all listen. Okay, so let's just take a moment. Let's take a quick little second. I don't care for Diana. And it's only episode 2. It is only episode 2. This is the first time that Diana has shown up in episode 2 of the show that is supposed to be about her. And I don't like her. I'm already mad at the way she's sleeping in a bed. So I don't have high hopes for my connection to her going forward in the show. I just don't. And I didn't want to say that because I felt like I'm prejudging her. But at the same time, it's very telling that I don't even like the way this woman sleeps. Anyway, we'll just monitor it. We'll monitor it and we'll see where I go from here. So it turns out that Diana is dreaming, and in this dream she saw a spider crawling on the nightstand, and then she looked at her hand, and her hand had a big web over it, and then she lifts up the blanket and the spider jumps out at her. And I was like, can the spider just eat her? I know this is a dream, but can the spider just eat her, please? Like, just do us all a favor and just, anyway. So, anyway, let me hush. So after Diana wakes up, she looks at her hand and she sees the mark that she still has from the book, when she got, like, whatever from the book. And she bandages it up, and then she sits down and she looks at Matthew's business card. So I was like, oh, okay. So I guess she's thinking about Matthew, or more so probably thinking about the encounter that they had where he, like his eyes went black or whatever. And she goes over to her cubby hole for where I'm assuming her mail is, and she checks it, and her jacket is in there, the one that Matthew smelled, and then he went ballistic. So she, for some reason, I couldn't tell if she was trying to smirk. I couldn't tell if she was constipated. I couldn't tell if she was upset. I don't know what the emotion was supposed to be in that moment that we were supposed to get, but I think she smiled. I don't know. I don't like this woman. And it's not the actress. It's not the act. I mean, I feel like the actress's like acting ability is contributing to why I don't like, no, not acting ability, her acting style. I feel like her acting style is contributing to why I don't like Diana, but that's neither here nor there. So y'all, our next scene is this man, and he's on a boat. I'm assuming it's like a personal boat. Y'all, when I tell you that this man was so fine, like, this man was so good looking. Like, he had this dark hair. He had the beard. Listen. I'm not going to talk about that too much because I could stay talking about that for about 15 minutes, and I'm not going to do that. That man was good looking. Anyway, so he goes into this building. Turns out it's the morgue. And he goes in, and the man who's like is it the mortician? The coroner? I think it's coroner. I don't know. The man tries to stop him, and the guy who walked in is like, your boss is going to call you in 3 seconds and tell you that I'm allowed entry because I'm here for the body of the tourist. And the man just kind of looks at him like, what? And then the phone rings, and his boss is like, you need to let this person in. So he goes in there, and he's asking questions, and the coroner person is like, it's weird because his body has no blood in it, but there was no blood found at the scene. And so, we know that it was a vampire. And the other guy asks him about any background on the man. So when the coroner turns around to go get the papers or whatever, the guy smells him. And I was like, ew. But I'm assuming there was a reason to it, so I'm not going to say too much about it. And by him, y'all, I mean the dead guy. I was so disgusted. I was literally like, I was like, did he just sniff that man? And he did. But I mean, hey, like I said, there's got to be a reason to it. So the coroner guy comes back, and he's like, yeah, the guy was French. And old boy asks him, well, what was the guy's name? And the coroner says, Matthew. I can't say it because y'all know I'm not French, and y'all not finna have me out here mispronouncing people's names. And so he says it, and then the other guy looks, and he's like, oh, Matthew. And he puts it together, and I'm like, okay, what's so special about Matthew? So then we cut to a scene of Matthew and his fancy friend from earlier, and they're hunting. And y'all, I was so happy to see that they were actually hunting an animal. I cannot explain to you how happy I was that it was an actual animal. It was a buck or something. I don't know the animal kingdom like that. Antelope, buck. It could have been a rhinoceros. I don't know. It was something. And so Matthew, so they're actually interlocking two scenes. So they're going between Matthew and Diana. But while we're still on Matthew like locks eyes with the buck and starts chasing it. And Matthew has super speed. And for some reason, the buck is like still moving faster than him, low key. And I was like, so what? am I supposed to be getting from this scene that Matthew's powers are dwindling? I'm not understanding, because it was a CGI book. So clearly they had to do that because they needed the book to, or whatever the animal was, to, be able to like interact with him in a way that wasn't natural to how the animal really would in real life. But I was like, why is he moving at super speed and still, I don't know. I don't know. So at the same time, Diana is going to the library. Every time I see Diana, I want to fight. And I don't know who I want to fight or how I want to fight, but I want to fight somebody. And I mean, her hair is just like, her hair was like okay when she got up this morning. So I don't understand how now that she's in the library, now her hair looks a mess and it's disheveled. But anyway, so she's like, oh, it's busy in here. And the guy who works in there, whose name I have forgotten, I think it's Sean, a girl, I don't know. He's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. So she starts walking through the library, and like literally people are just staring at her. They are stopping what they are doing and they are staring at her. And I was like, girl, you cannot still actually be walking through this library. But she was. But then she started noticing that they were looking at her, and she was like, okay, what y'all looking? Like, she didn't ask anybody what they were looking at, but she was creeped out, as she should have been. Like, I was even low-key uncomfortable. That's how much was going on. So, the older guy who went to go find the witch in the woods in the first episode is there. He introduces himself as Peter Knox, and he's like, everyone's heard about the book, She's not really paying him no time of day. She is literally ignoring this man. And then he's like, maybe we can talk over coffee or tea or what. No, he says, maybe we can talk over coffee. And she's like, no, thank you. And he's like, maybe you like tea better, like your mother. And she looks at him, and I'm thinking like, oh boy, Diana is finna cut up on this man. And as, that happens, Matthew attacks the book. So the next scene, I'm thinking that Diana is going to be like being forced to go with this man to talk about the book. And she's like just chilling. She's laughing, minding her business. She is like enjoying every single moment of being with him. And she's like, did you know my father? And he's like, only slightly. And then he's like, so what was my mom about? And he, like literally she's talking like an idiot. And he's like, well, I met your mother when we were teenagers. I was very fond of her. I wanted to reach out to you, but your aunt is very protective. And she's like, yeah, she is. And I'm like, okay. This man comes up to you in a library. And there's a reason that I say this man, because I was kind of confused about what she knew about him. And I'm going to tell y'all why later on. So she goes to go sit down with him in there, just having a drink or whatever. And he's asking her about the book. And she's like, I just wanted the book and they brought it to me. And he's like, and surely you put it back. Like, mind you, he's like ramping up the questions, and she's like, of course I put it back. I would never steal from a library. And like, he is interrogating her at this point. He's asking her like, what was in the book? She's like, I don't know, I just looked at one page. And he was like, well, surely you must have seen something. Surely that was, and like, he is into it. And so she's like, what do you want to see in this book exactly? And he tells her that the rumor is that the book contains some of the witch's like first spells, and it contains how they made the vampires. And he says that if it contains how they made the vampires, maybe it can show them how to unmake the vampires. So for some reason, of everything that has been happening, this entire interaction, that was the thing that made her go, maybe I should stop talking to you. So like, he grabs her, like she's trying to leave and he grabs her. And she's like, I'm not gonna help you because I'm Diana and I'm not gonna do that. I'm like, girl, okay, whatever. So he's like, surely I'll be seeing you around. And she doesn't even like She stops for a second and kind of looks at him, but I'm like, girl, he just threatened you. Why are we not more concerned with this than we are? Diana, I feel like, is not smart. And I mean, obviously, clearly, she's a very intelligent woman, but I feel like Diana makes stupid decisions. Or she just doesn't, in that moment, you would think that she would, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. You would think that she would have gone to the head of the coven, because at this point she doesn't know that they're like involved in this. So you would think that she would have gone to the head of the coven and been like, girl, I'm getting some weird vibes from this man and I need to know what's going on. Especially because there is no way that you are this trusting of this man simply because he knew your parents. Like, mama, you need to, we need some therapy or something. I don't even know what we need at this point, but there is no way that you could possibly be that trusting to that man. But anyway, moving on. Next scene. We go to old girl from before, Juliet. Well, her name, we find out in this scene that her name is Juliet. The one that took out the tourist guy earlier while she was looking for Matthew. I kept staring at her face because I felt like I knew her from somewhere and I couldn't figure out where, and it was bothering me. So I literally had to pause it and I had to go look her up because it was going to drive me insane. I was going to spend the rest of the episode trying to figure out where I knew her. Turns out she's Autumn Night from P-Valley. I never in a million years would have guessed that was Autumn Night because I don't really watch P-Valley like that. Not because I don't like it. I mean, I watched like an episode of it and was like, yeah, well, maybe this isn't for me. I may go back and try to watch it, but that's not really the point here. The point here is that it was Autumn Night. And I was like, yes, mama, you better be booked and busy. I don't remember what year this show came out, but you better be booked and busy, ma'am. So the fine man, like, y'all, the way he jumped off of that boat as it like went past the whatchamacallit, the building. I don't know if they're supposed to get off like that, but he just like stepped off like it was nothing. And I was like, oh my God, let me hush. I'm gonna keep it E. I'm gonna keep it rated E. Anyway, so she's like, if you're here to see my father, then he's busy. And he's like, I'm sure he wants to hear what I have to say. And I was like, I want to hear what you have to say too. But anyway, let me be quiet, child. So she takes him in there to go see her father. And he, is there to tell him about the tourist. And so Autumn Night looks like, oh my God. And the daddy kind of creeps me out a little bit. And like the fine man, he like kissed his ring when he came in. And I was like, what are we doing here? Is he like the vampire pope or something? But anyway. And so daddy tells Autumn Night that she needs to leave the room. And I was like, oh yeah, some stuff is finna happen. Some stuff is finna go down. So then we cut to Diana and she's talking to Snitch Girl. Let me just go through the scene and we'll talk about it in a second. So Diana is talking to Snitch Girl. She clearly, trusts her. And she's like, I just don't know what Peter Knox wants to do with this book. I mean, he hates other species. And I was like, wait. Why are we acting now as if Diana has always known that this man hates other species? I feel like maybe that's something I'm missing, some context that I'm missing, because the way that this scene was presented made it seem like she knew that he hated other species, but she was just talking to him because he knew her parents. But the way it kind of played out before was as if she had absolutely no idea who he was, and she was just excited to meet someone who knew her parents. Like, I feel like they could have done a better job of establishing their connection. Even if she had said, he started to introduce himself and be like, I'm Peter Knox. And she'd be like, I know who you are, Peter Knox. You hate other. Like you don't have to have her like give us a 10-minute disposition on who he is. But there should have been something to indicate that she knew who he was versus this very confusing like rhetoric that we're getting. I don't know. So she's talking to Snitch Girl, and Snitch Girl is doing everything to convince her to give her the book, give him the book, short of just saying, I snitched on you. Can you please give him the book? Like, she is acting so dodgy. And she's just like Diana is trusting her and is like, I don't know what to do. And Snitch Girl is like, but just give him the book. I mean, just give him the book and be done with it. And then we can all move on with our merry lives. And then, like, she becomes a hater out of nowhere. And she's like, it would be just like you for this to be happening. You don't even, like, she essentially is like, you don't even want magic and this is happening. And so this is when Diana is starting to understand that there's something weird going on. But she's also talking about Matthew, and she's like, there's just something about him. I think that he's different. And the Snitch Girl, like, Diana asked her, have you ever talked to a vampire? And she's like, nah. And I think I got the voices mixed up, but you know what I'm saying. And so the Diana is like, this is the only one she's ever talked to. And then the Snitch Girl is like, so now you know all about vampires just because you've talked to one. Like, it's the weirdest conversation. I was just so glad for that moment to be over because, girl, I really could care less. So we go back to Matthew, and Matthew's talking to old boy. That's a demon. And apparently demons are unaliving themselves because of their mental health. And so they need the book so that they can understand more about their origins. And I feel like clearly that's a statement that we're going to follow up on, at least at some point in the season. Maybe not this particular episode, but at least some point in the season. But I'm not understanding, like, how demons unaliving themselves correlates to needing the book, but I'm just here for the ride. I'm just going to enjoy the ride and go from there. So we go back to the lab, or we go to the lab rather, and the guy that tried to turn his best friend, but he couldn't, he's there with the girl that he had apparently hooked up with. And he asked about the test results from his friend, and apparently the friend's blood was normal. So that means there's something with him. So I just had to bring that up because there was a quick little moment that they, went to. So we're back to Diana again. So Diana is running in the park. And y'all, Diana, I want to reiterate, Diana is a very small person, but she is running so hard that I swear to God, it sounds like her knees should just break under the pressure. Like, she is running so hard. I can hear every single step. I mean, it's not even, I don't know. I'm not a runner, obviously, clearly. So I have got nothing to say in this moment. I'm just going to be quiet. I am just going to say that Diana was running very, very hard. And I don't even know why. Like, I don't even know why that bothered me, but it did. I think it's just Diana. I think at this point, Diana could breathe and I would be like, oh God, here we go again. So anyway, so the witch lady from the woods comes up to her and she is basically taunting her and is like, what happened to your hand? And she's like, nothing happened. And then the witch is like, I think it happened from the book. I think it happened when you opened it. And then she's like, magic attracts magic, but yours is buried. Somebody did something. Like, she goes into a trance first. Let me say that. She goes into a trance for like what feels probably like a full minute and a half. And Diana's just standing there. Diana's standing there like staring at her and whatever else. And I was like, girl, this is the moment that you probably should run. But that's me giving Diana some sense. And Diana doesn't have that. And so the lady comes out of it and she's like, somebody did something to you or you did something to yourself. And Diana just like decides to walk off at this point. She's like, tell Peter Knox I'm not gonna give him the book. And and the lady's like, it's not about the book anymore. It's about you. And I was like, okay. So what I took from this like interaction is that Diana has done something to try to suppress her own magic, or she is suppressing it like maybe subconsciously or something. That's kind of what I'm getting from it, but I'm not 100% sure. That's going to be interesting. That is definitely going to be interesting to see what's going to come of that, because if she did something to herself, I wonder how easily it can be undone, or if the book has started like to truly undo it, because it seems like it's being undone anyway. But I wonder if the book is just like, girl, I'm not playing this game with you. So Diana goes and she calls Big Deedee, which I'm so excited to see Big Deedee on screen, because y'all know I love me some Big Deedee. And she's telling her that Peter is in town. And let me double back for a second, because I just realized that I skipped over something that I wanted to bring up. Diana says that she knows that the witch from the woods is working with Peter Knox. Apparently she saw them like in the library together or something like that, or she saw her in the library or whatever. So I think that she pieced together that she was working with Peter, because in the moment I was like, okay, so how does she just know that all of this stuff is going on? But I think that she pieced it together. So I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to give her some semblance of credit. For once, I want to give her some kind of semblance of credit, because even though she may not deserve it, I'm gonna try to give them their flowers where their flowers are due. So anyway, back to Big Deedee. She's on the phone with Big Deedee. She's asking about Peter. And Big Deedee is saying that Peter knew her mama. He was like crazy about her mama. But, he tried to like even convince her not to marry Diana's daddy. But Peter got into dark magic apparently. And so by the time that Diana's parents died, neither one of them trusted Peter. And she's like, please be careful of him. Like she keeps asking her, what is he doing in Vienna? By the way, they're in Vienna. I forgot to tell y'all that. They're in... I finally find out where they are. They finally say that they're in Venice, Vienna. Wait, which one? Girl, I don't know. I think I have written down Venice, but I feel like somebody said Vienna at one point. Girl, I don't know. We just go. We know it's somewhere over there. That's all we know. We know that at this point. And we have narrowed it down to where we know it starts with a V. So, listen, we cutting up now. We got a little bit of something. What I will say I'm most happy about in that moment, though, with her calling Big Deedee, is the fact that she finally called somebody that she trusted and that she knows she can trust. Because she's sitting there having this conversation with Peter, supposedly knowing that he doesn't like other species. She's having this conversation with Snitch Girl earlier, who is acting the shadiest that she could possibly act. So I'm glad that it has finally gotten into Diana's skull and her nappy hair to go ahead and call someone that she can actually trust. Anyway, so our next scene, we are in a hallway in a big, beautiful mansion, and Autumn Night is walking, and her father calls her and is like, Juliet. I can't even do it. He basically tells her, come here, we need to talk. Baby, that man's voice. Okay, this ain't that kind of podcast. This is not that kind of podcast. That man's voice, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna just leave it at that. And so he is basically asking her, like, where were you 2 nights ago? And she's like, I went out. You told me I could. And he's like, I told you could if you were good. And I was like, oh my God. I said, girl, okay. I heard something purring and I said, let me be quiet. Let me just hush. Anyway. So this woman, it looks like she is about to like fall to pieces. She looks like she is so scared. And so he's basically telling her, like, you're giving our enemies an opportunity to come for me and you're giving them ammunition against me. I need to know what happened. She is lying to this man in his face, lying to him dead in his face. So he bites her and I was like, oh my God. And so when he bites her, he can see her memories. And so like he bites her again and he sees, the memory of her unaliving that man, but then also sees like her memories of having like sex with Matthew. And like this woman is like screaming in terror. And I don't even think it was in pain. I genuinely think it was in terror. So he throws her into like a little cell down under, I'm assuming underneath the house. And like, she's like, you told me to get Matthew. And then she's like screaming as he locks the door. She's like, Father. And I was like, oh my God, baby, the episode started ramping up. Okay. And so, okay. Okay. Y'all are about to be so tickled at me because the next scene is Matthew and the demon guy, and they're talking. Apparently, demons are treated like low-class citizens. The gist of the scene is that the demon guy is trying to stop Matthew from going back because he wants to avoid like Diana getting hurt. He starts throwing up women in his face that he, hurt in the past, and Matthew was like, oh, I said I would never get involved with another warm-blooded woman, da-da-da-da. And so the demon guy's like, yeah, but you're acting like that. There must be something special about Diana because you've never talked about a woman the way you talked about her. And I was like, okay, he just met her. That's not the takeaway from this. In the scene, the demon guy says Diana's name, and it's Diana Bishop. And it made me realize throughout this entire podcast so far, I have been calling Diana Spencer. And I don't have an answer as to why. I think that Diana Spencer, isn't that Princess Diana's maiden name? I think it is. I don't know. But for some reason, I guess my mind was like trying to go to a more relevant Diana. And I'm surprised I haven't been calling her Diana Ross. Like when he said Diana Bishop, I was like, I have been saying the wrong last name for the main character of the show the entire podcast episode. I think there was one point earlier in the episode where I said it like 4 times. So y'all, I promise you, I am not crazy. I promise you I'm not. I may be a little off. I may be, may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I promise you I'm not off. Y'all, I was so tickled. When he said Diana Bishop, I was like, who? I literally had to go back and be like, who is he talking about? I was like, is there another woman named Diana involved in this? Like, did he unalive another woman named Diana? No, he's talking about the main character of the show. And I was not. So I just wanted to segue there a little bit. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. Y'all, Diana, okay, again, here we go with Diana again. So Diana goes to this party, right? First off, she has taken her messy hair and put it up into a messy bun. And I swear to God that she's been wearing the same clothes literally since the first episode. Like I feel like she only changes her clothes when she goes to bed and when she goes to run. I feel like those are the only time that she's worn something different from this outfit, but I can't prove it. I would have to go back, and I'm not doing that. So she goes to the party and she's talking to this guy who's like a professor or whatever he is, a dean, whatever. And he's like lavishing her with praise. And I heard you gave a great speech or told a story or whatever it is. And she's like, yeah, I did. And so they're basically like, yeah, we want to put you on the fast track to get into, be a professor here, a tenured professor. So he says, I want to introduce you to somebody. And he introduces her to Peter Knox. And so Peter is like basically playing with her and is like, it's so interesting that you study alchemy when you don't have the interest in it. And she's like, I have the interest, I just don't have the aptitude. And so of course here he comes talking about the book again, and she's like, I don't know how that happened. And so he's basically telling her, like, you also didn't tell me that a vampire came after you. And she's shook, as she should be, because how do we know that this is occurring? And he is really pressing her to get this book. And she taunts him and is like, much like my mother, when I make up my mind about something, I don't change it. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So she goes to walk off. Y'all, why this man gets in her head and he's talking to her telepathically. So what was interesting to me was the fact that it was like, you could tell it was kind of hurting her. And so she's still trying to walk off and whatnot. And she's trying to get away from him. And he's telling her like, girl, don't play with me like that, because I promise you it's not going to turn out the way you want it to. I'm not the one. Don't make me have to force you to do it. So then her hands start to glow. And her hands start to glow. And she responds to him telepathically. And you know what? I'm not even going to try to do the voice. I'm going to actually play it for you so that you can hear it.
Get out of my head!
That was Diana. That was Diana. And the excellent level of acting that we have been receiving this entire episode. See, y'all thought I was playing with you when I was doing that voice. I was going like this. No, that's actually how she sounds at certain points. And when she said, "Get out of my head," I said, okay, all right. Am I going to keep watching this? I actually thought about turning this off and never turning it back on when she did that, because you are not about to play in my face like that. The way that they said, okay, let's give you the most while giving you the least. I can't. I can't. And then the CGI glass that broke and like shattered in his face but didn't cut him. And I can get with the idea that he used magic to stop it from cutting him. I get that. But baby, anyway, So as Diana is walking away, the girl from the woods, the witch from the woods, she comes out and she's staring at her, and I'm like, okay. But anyway, y'all. So, okay. We are finally in the home stretch. So the rest of the episode is eventful, but I feel like it's not at the same time. Because, okay, Peter goes to see Snitch Friend, right? And she's acting like a nervous Nelly as usual. And so, like, I couldn't get a read on like whether he thought that she was lying about not knowing that Diana had power, but she's genuinely confused that Diana was using magic against him. And so as they're standing there talking, Diana comes to the door, and then nervous Nelly answers it, and she's like, and then Peter reveals himself, and she realizes that she's been looking, that she's been working with him. And so then we get to watch Diana go through flashbacks and all this and that. And she tries to force out a tear. And she actually does. She cries. I'm not going to lie. Then she goes to see, what is this man's name? Matthew. She goes to see Matthew. And Matthew and her start talking. He can feel her adrenaline is up. He's standing there trying to get himself together. And it's the most boring back and forth. Because, like, he's carrying the conversation. He's really old. He knew Charles Darwin. He's not saying specifically how old he is. He takes her to the lab. Apparently vampires and witches and demons are dying out at this point. Like, demons are taking themselves out. Vampires aren't able to sire new vampires, and witches are losing their magic. So he shows her markers because he's taken blood from like deceased witches and, other magical creatures. And as the bloodlines have gone on for witches, they've started to lose their power. He theorizes it's because they don't have a need to rely on magic anymore to survive like they did back in the cut. So I was like, okay, well, that's actually very interesting. That is actually a very interesting plot point. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes. And they go outside and they're talking, and she decides to tell him what she saw in the book, and he thanks her, and then he kisses her wrist, and I was like, okay. And I also forgot to tell you that there is one part where Diana tells Matthew that she recognized that the witch from the woods was Scandinavian. And I don't understand why she specifically said that the lady was Scandinavian, because I feel like I couldn't tell from like her accent or anything. So I don't understand what the point of her telling us that she was Scandinavian was. I don't know. And Peter also takes Snitch Girl to go meet the Scandinavian witch. And the Scandinavian witch doesn't even acknowledge Witch Girl. Apparently the Scandinavian witch is part of something called the Congregation now. And she tells Peter that she tried to peer inside of Diana, and she couldn't get a read on her. So, like I said, so during Matthew and Diana's conversation, he basically is telling her like one day the way things are going. Cause Diana's like, baby, we got time. It's not like we're going to go extinct tomorrow. And he's like, well, yeah, but I have a different view of time than you. You know, tomorrow turns into 100 years very quickly. And one day what's going to happen is humans will be the only ones left and there'll be no magic in the world. And they won't understand what happened because they don't know that we exist. Okay. Y'all, I am interested enough to keep watching because I feel like the actual story is really intriguing. Like, I want to know what Matthew's draw to Diana is. I want to know what the book has in it. I want to know more about Peter. I really want to know more about that good looking man that went to go see that vampire lady because, oh my God. But anyway, I want to know more about Diana's magic. There's so much that I want to really know about because I love the concept that witches' magic is starting to die out because they don't need it anymore. And they're starting to suppress their magic subconsciously because they don't need it anymore. I feel like because I am a very analytical person sometimes, I get analytical about the wrong things. And I think that little things are starting to add up because this is one of those shows where you can't blame the production value. There's another show I watch, and I'm not going to say that show's name because I don't feel like that's relevant. But people talk about the production value and how horrible it is and blah, 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 blah. I feel like this show is sort of a case study in how you can have amazing production value and still have people that can't carry the story that you're trying to tell. I don't know, again, the actress that plays Diana. I don't know that lady. I'm sure she is a wonderful person. This is not a dig at her. I feel like I'm having trouble connecting to the character of Diana because of some of the acting choices that she's making. Sometimes Diane, and I feel like it's a mix of some of the acting choices that she makes, like, get out of my head. I feel like it's a mix of stuff like that. And then also a mix of like the dialogue, because I don't think that this first season has a lot of episodes. I think it has like 8 episodes in it or something like that, which is not a lot of time to, it's not a lot of time to do what you need to do. So I appreciate the story that they are telling. And I do think that it's going to turn out well. I just think that that's why little things happen, like Diana, for whatever reason, telling us that that's a Scandinavian witch. Just little pieces and conversations here and there that are had, us not really knowing if she knew about Peter, but she didn't, but then she did. Like I think that some of the dialogue is getting a little muddled up in places. And I think that it's just, I don't feel like I'm going to stop. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to stop watching it. I'm not going to stop doing that because I do think it's a show worth watching. I just feel like I can't put my finger on what it is that I don't care for about it. Because I've watched shows before that moved quickly or that had to move quickly. I've watched shows before that you had to really keep up with what was going on because they had a very limited amount of time to tell you the story. And I feel like they are giving me what I want, and I feel like they are setting up a story that I'm going to want to keep up with. But it's even with like the demon guy that Matthew went to go see. I just feel like that was such a quick scene, when if they had like a 20 episode season, that would have been its own episode. Like him being out there probably would have been its own episode with other scenes spliced into it, like to, kind of break it up. And I think they're just I think there's just a lot happening at one time. And this is only episode 2. So I know things are probably going to move fairly quickly from here. And I'm ready for the ride. I'm ready to see where it takes us. I don't like Diana. I don't like the character of Diana. she just is almost insufferable. Not insufferable. I don't think that Diana's insufferable. I don't think that we've reached insufferable level. I think that Diana is a character I don't really vibe with because she's that kind of like nonchalant kind of character that's popular. You know, that one that's like, I don't want to be a part of magic and I'm not gonna be a part of it. And I just don't care for that kind of character sometimes. And just the way that she's like, I don't have any power. And it's like, yeah, you do. And I understand this is the second episode, but like, let's stop. But then again, that's supposed to be the point of the character. I don't know. I'm very conflicted on that. I don't, I'm just not clicking with her character. I actually really like the character Matthew. I really like the character Matthew. I don't think that we're probably going to learn more about Autumn Night's character, but I hope we do because, you know, he threw her down there in like the dungeon cell thingy. Rah, rah, like a dungeon dragon. And, ooh, can I even put that in there? I should have just said rah, rah. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, point being that I am going to stick in it. Ew, that didn't sound. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it, especially to see what that good looking man, what he got going on. Because, baby, I think they said his name was Domenico. I think it was something like that. It was something like that because it wasn't like a name I have personally been exposed to before. And so, but I'm sure it's like, you know, a normal name. I've never, I think it was Domenico though. It was something like that. But I don't know if they were referring to him because when Autumn Night was being, you know, interrogated by the father, she was like, you know, he hates me. And I was like, is she talking about him? Because I don't know. Because she acted like she knew him. So I'm just assuming that they, you know, had a history or something. I'm going to stick with it. And we'll be back for episode 3 to do the rundown, see what they got into, see what Matthew can find out, see what they can get going and rocking and rolling. And I want somebody at some point to do something to Snitch Girl because I'm sick of seeing her. I am as tired as I am of Diana already. Snitch Girl has got to go. Like, I don't care if you send her off to the Himalayas. I don't care if next episode I turn on and y'all tell me that she's been missing for 3 months. I don't care. I don't want to see Snitch Girl on my screen anymore. And again, this has nothing to do with the actress. This is the character. Because she's just sitting there just acting so just like, I don't know what to do. Girl, shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Anyway. Thank y'all for sitting here listening to me rant and rave about this television program. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please remember to follow me on social media. Remember what is it that you do with the podcast? Do you subscribe to the podcast? I think you do. Like on Amazon Podcasts and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think you subscribe to it. You either subscribe to it or follow it. Girl, whichever one it is, do it. Like, hit the little button that's going to let you know when I upload, and we'll go from there. If you can't find me anywhere, you can find me pretty much everywhere under They Call Me Mr. G. Like, I'm on Instagram specifically for not specifically for this. I also upload like my TikTok stuff, but my Instagram is Mr. G Reviews. And you can find me on there. And I upload stuff, you know, about the podcast. I upload stuff from TikTok. I upload all kinds of things. And also you can find me on Discord. I do have a Discord. And that's where you can get updates about the podcast and things like that. So I hope to see you around, whether it be here, whether it be on TikTok, whether it be on Discord, wherever it is. I just hope I get a chance to see you again. Thank you for listening. Bye.